guys, John McNamara, host, running Vegas. We're talking local sports, business, real estate with my co-host, Mr.
Rodrigo. Always happy to be here. And for everyone out there listening, tuning in, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell on YouTube, and you'll know when we're releasing a new episode. So please leave us a comment and let us know how we're doing.
Yeah, hit that bell. And guys, we got a special guest today, Mr. Richard Thompson, UvU Coaching. He's a mindset coach. He's been my personal coach for a couple of years. Thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this, and great getting to catch up with you guys again.
Oh, for sure.
Get you in the studio instead of out in the field, right?
Yeah, this is different.
This is different.
Yeah.
I was telling him I wouldn't be surprised if I got to do a couple squats live on the podcast.
That's a great
You need to do
idea.
like 100 push-ups right now for today.
I should have been holding some dumbbells.
The whole time.
There you go.
You know, you can't sweat.
Yeah, some burpees out in the parking lot after this.
Doable.
All right. Well, tell us about you. Where you from? How'd you get into coaching?
So I grew up in California, right? So born in Van Nuys, went out to the San Fernando Valley after my mom remarried, and grew up out there, Valley boy, and got into golf at around 15, and that set me on the path of that personal development path. And I was always curious, like, why do people do what they do? Like, why do people think a certain way or not think a certain way or behave a certain way? And it was always a curiosity for me. And I think it's just picked up speed over the years. So that's really what got me on the path eventually to coaching. But it was really the question of, why do people do what they do? Like, that was always one of my curiosities. Like, I see people doing so many different things in life or not do things. Why? And that's just one of those things I just couldn't satisfy the answer that I kept getting, and it kept making me understand, question, like, why do I do what I do? Because sometimes I was doing stuff, I'm like, why did I just do that?
Right.
That's not rational, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what got me on that path.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, because I remember with our coaching too, a lot of times I would have like stories in my head, and you would coach me through scenarios, and you would just like break it down, like, well, why do you think that, John? And do you really think they think that? And it really kind of, like, I had to take a step back, and it really changed my thought process a lot with dealing with people, situations. So it's really healthy for me, because I just thought the story in my head was true.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I realized most of it is BS, it's either my ego or having victim mentality in that moment. So I always appreciated that. That was one of the biggest lessons I got from you, from coaching. So
It's such a huge life lesson, right?
yeah.
Is really, what story do we want to believe, right? What story are we willing to believe and buy into? And if we choose it to be true, how do we create frameworks around it to make it true?
Yeah.
Most of us just take in whatever comes at us and we go, oh, that must be the truth.
Yeah.
Right? And we can get into that, because understanding how the human brain works, I think, can help set you up for success long term. If we know the game, if we know how the brain's hardwired, and we have these mental models to help us through the world, it will help us be more successful than maybe we have to this point.
Yeah. So what are some, glad you brought that up, so what are some tools that you'd recommend to people out there to help them to set them up for success and a positive mindset?
So some that have been most useful for me growing up and as an adult, one of the most useful frameworks I've ever used was to take responsibility for everything in my life. And so that is difficult, because being a victim is much easier. Being a victim is, and you can be around people who allow you to be a victim, and I'm not feeling well, or this person did this, oh, you deserve, let's go out for drinks because you had a hard day, and, that person was a jerk to you, and it's like, oh, and you feed into it, and it feels good, and we kind of just go along this path, and we surround ourselves with people that will allow us to be victims.
Yeah.
It's not wrong.
Okay.
It's just a choice. Are you choosing to be a victim?
Yeah.
Or are you choosing another path? And that's one of the things I really coach on. It's like, you can be a victim, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
But make a conscious choice to be a victim.
Yeah.
or make a conscious choice to take responsibility for everything that happens. Either way, it gets to be your choice. As a coach, I don't choose for you.
Yeah.
Right? I empower you to take a look. I hold up the mirror for you to go, is this what you want?
Yeah.
And that can be really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because most of us aren't willing to look in the mirror going, I'm choosing this?
Right.
Wait a minute. No, life's just happening to me. Right? I don't get to choose my life. And you get to be right. Whatever story you're going to tell yourself, you get to be right. So if you think everything's predetermined and before I was born it was all set up, and you truly believe that, you get to be right.
Yeah.
Or if you say, hey, there's a lot of things in my control and a lot of things not in my control, I'm going to focus on things I can control, you get to be right. And I'm not a victim. I'm responsible for every result I create, good or bad, and I get to take feedback from everything that happens and go, that worked well. That sucked, right?
Yeah.
I did terrible on that one. Awesome. Now I get to use it as a learning experience and fail forward,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And my relationship with failure is probably one of the greatest gifts I've given myself through coaching, through development, is the relationship with failure. So before, failure was this big red light, like, I don't want to fail. Why? Because I look bad, I suck, people won't like me, all these things that I labeled with failure. And it's like, that stopped me from doing so many things, because who wants to fail if we label it like that, right?
Yeah.
So imagine how many of us out there are in sales, and if you believe that somebody not answering the phone or somebody hanging up on me is failure, why would I want to call somebody? If somebody just starts screaming at me, or I hit them at the wrong time, or I don't feel like I have value to give them in that moment, and I just keep failing over and over, it's like, how many phone calls will I make before I just go, it's not for me,
Yeah.
right? Oh, let's do something else, Mailers sound really good right now, right?
Yeah.
Cold mail, cold email, whatever it is,
yeah.
right? Because whatever the relationship you have, if you do the thing and you label failure as these things and you don't want to fail, of course you're not going to want to do it. That's called being human. That's called being healthy and rational, right? But if you can change the relationship with failure and go, okay, what is failure to me this morning? If I'm out here and my job is to make 100 cold calls, the only way I can fail is not making the calls.
Yeah.
And so if I can reframe it, like this framing in my mind is so powerful, instead of going, hey, if they don't answer, if I don't get a listing, if I don't make the sale, I failed, into the only way I can fail is by not making the calls.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. Then all I have to do is dial a number, somebody picks up, I talk to them, I offer value,
Yeah.
and then the conversation's done, and I go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, wait a minute, I turned something that was about me and about my life and how I suck because I can't get the result that I want, and completely turned it around.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute. If that's just one example, where else, this is the coach speaking, where else in my life am I doing the same thing?
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. So coaching is about asking questions, right?
Yeah, it's good. I like how you put that too, because we talk about the team too, is like reframing those no's into, I mean, I get like a dopamine effect when I get the no's, because I created a win in my head versus I got rejected.
Yeah.
So I love how you put that. Where else can I apply that in my life? So
Yeah, where am I stopping? Where am I labeling something as failure? And it's like, is it failure, or is it just the way I'm framing it in my head? Like, you get a dopamine hit by making the call and getting the no. It's like, because in your mind, you have conditioned and trained yourself to a no probably just means a closer to a yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that's part of the game.
Yeah.
And for you, making calls is part of the game, and you just love it. That's just what I do. Where other people are like, Rich, you don't understand. My cell phone, it's about 600 pounds. Right? I know every day I go in there, and I'm like, I just got to make my 100 calls, and I'm just like, I got to go get coffee. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. right?
Yeah.
And I get it. I was the same way, right? And it's like I got the heaviest cell phone on the planet. And it's like, okay, can we take a breath? That's one of the tools, right? Take a breath, smile, get over your ego, and just, how am I thinking about this, right? In the big scheme of life, right? I make it out to be so big. It's like, take a breath, get over yourself, and just make the call.
Yeah.
Right? But the way we frame it, because if we think it's like this burden, this life to hurdle, right? And it's like, of course you're not going to make the call. Right? Why would you?
Building it up. Yeah.
But if you turn it into a hit, like, oh, there's one, I got a no, awesome. That means I'm closer to a yes.
Yeah.
Like, what an incredible reframe in there.
Yeah.
So talk about the breathing techniques, because that was another really important lesson I got from you that I still do every single morning.
Yeah.
Talk more about that, because I know that's been huge for me to calm myself down when I'm stressed or to get centered for the day. It was definitely a game changer for me when you brought that to my attention.
So the short form is, when in doubt, take a breath. When you feel a stimulus, when you're aroused, when you feel emotionally charged, take a breath. Before you react and tell somebody how wrong they are, you get emotionally charged, take a breath, right? So it's what I learned playing golf and in sports, to be able to control my nervous system, right? And then we developed even further when I went into SEAL teams, is when you're getting ready to make an entry, right? You don't know what's on the other side, right? It could be anything on the other side. You have to be calm so you can make a decision, right? If you're so jacked up and you're in that fight or flight response, you're not making decisions. You're just reacting in a way that probably won't have a very good outcome, right? But if you can take a breath, slow your nervous system down enough so that you can respond, right? And I learned this, and one of the greatest books I ever read was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that book, there was a section that talked about this difference between your stimulus and response. There's a gap, right? And if you can insert yourself into that gap, and then you can make a decision in there, right? That's the response, right? So you have the stimulus, and then you've got the reaction. And we want to try to spread that out as long as we can before we choose to respond, so that we can have the outcome that we want. Because if we just react to everything, most likely it won't be the type of outcome that we want, right? So imagine, a good analogy is, we're all driving on the streets, right? And you're in the parking lot and you're waiting. You're a good Samaritan, right? You're waiting. You got your signal on. It's a busy parking lot, right? You're waiting for the guy to back out. You don't want to get too close to smother him and give him some room to back out, right? And you give him plenty of room. They're slow, and you're like, okay, no problem, right? Yeah. And you give him plenty of time, and he pulls out. And right when you're about to pull in, another car pulls right in front of you and parks, right? So now you have a choice, right? Hopefully. So you got a stimulus. This car just cuts right in front of you. You're the good guy, right? They cut in, they take the parking spot. Are you just going to react and start laying down the horn because you've been so unjustly, cut off, right? Or you're just going to take a breath. This guy's just driving in the parking lot. Probably never even saw you because you parked so far away, right? And he's just parking. He's just as busy as you are, and he's just trying to get his shopping done too, right? Or you're going to be justified and lay on the horn and tell him what a jerk he is for cutting you off or whatever. It's like, you get to be right either way.
Right, yeah.
And what outcome are you looking for, right? Especially if you have your child in the car with you. What type of behavior do you want to model for them?
I love that.
Right?
Yeah, that's great.
Or if they have a child in the car, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of those opportunities we have just to practice what we do on a daily basis. Like, take a breath. And the story you tell yourself is going to make all the difference. Yeah. So it's like if somebody cuts you off when you're on the road and you have to lay on the brakes and you're white knuckling it, like, It's like, take a breath. Okay. Either you can be justified and flip them off and chase them for 2 blocks and tell them what a jerk they are. Yeah. And then it's like, wait a minute, who's the jerk? Right?
Yeah.
Who's like, did I escalate this, or did I just move on about my day and just go, take a breath, I survived it, I'm good,
Yeah.
My family's good. My car's good. Let's just keep moving on.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Or I can just be like, I was wronged. This person has to pay.
Yeah.
I can't stand people. They probably had California license plates somewhere in there.
They always
right?
have California license plates.
Those are the ones.
Move back.
Right, but it's like, one, knowing what type of life do you want to live, right? Do you want to be right, or do you want to have a life of focus and meaning?
Yeah.
And it's like, Rich, I want them all, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
absolutely, let's go, right?
Yeah.
But there's a distinction. There's always training throughout the day, right? It doesn't have to be these big events. We can be training all the time. And the best training when it hits you when you're not ready for it. Like
Yeah.
in a vehicle or at work, or you have something that happens, you're like, oof, I did not anticipate that.
Yeah.
Take a breath. And then sometimes I need to reframe it, right?
Yeah.
So that I get a bigger perspective, because if I don't, then I can get sucked into my own pity party.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, oh, the world sucks. I can't believe it's happening. The economy's going down the tank. This, America's over. Blah, 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 right? And I could be right about it. I can collect plenty of evidence to make myself right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But if it goes, okay, if I want the highest quality of life that I can, does that thinking serve me?
Right. Where does it get you?
Or does it make me just a victim?
Yeah.
Right? And so if I want the highest quality of life, then I start looking for things that serve me and allow for my thinking about the highest quality of life.
Yeah.
Now I start to see abundance out there.
Yeah.
Now I start to see opportunity. Now I start to see things that I couldn't see if I was a victim.
Yeah.
Right? Or I thought that, the GDP is now going, it's like,
Right.
okay, I can't influence that.
Yeah.
What can I influence? And that's where I direct my thinking.
That's great, and I think you bring up a good point, because you want that abundance mindset, because you're going to be vibrating on such a healthier level, and you're going to be able to bring hopefully good things into your life. And I liked how you talked about too, it's just always being prepared, especially in like sales. We talk about working on our sales skills every single day, and you don't know what they're going to bring at you when you go on the meeting or whatever, or you work on your mindset every single day. When something comes out of left field, it can make all the difference in the world versus just showing up. You got to do the work every single day.
Every day. But isn't that interesting? Why? Why do you have to do the work every day?
Yeah, here we go.
Oh man.
Coach Rodrigo, not me. I had 2 years of your coaching.
Like,
The simple answer is we're not hardwired for success.
Yeah.
We're not hardwired for abundance. We're not hardwired to self-actualize.
yeah.
We're hardwired to survive.
Absolutely.
So these mental models, like I love using these models, and they're not perfect, right? They're just models, they're imperfect, but they are helpful in understanding the way our brain works, right? So one is what I call, not that I termed it, it's called a motivational triad, right? So you can think about the human brain working in a certain way to help us survive, not necessarily thrive. And so it's hardwired to conserve energy, right? So why would I want to go work out when I can just sit here on the couch and watch Netflix, right?
Yeah.
I had a hard day at work. I did all my calls. I deserve to sit there and have a glass of wine, maybe a piece of pizza, and catch up on Netflix. It feels so good. It feels so right. It's like, I deserve this.
John yelled
Right?
at me. And I need to go out tonight.
Exactly. It's like, welcome to the club. That's called being a human, right? We're designed to conserve energy because in nature, food is scarce.
Yeah.
We live in this hyper-abundant world where we're more worried about, like, are my macros in line? Is this, like, what type of oil am I using? Like, go back 150 years, we're like, dude, give me whatever oil you got. I'm eating whatever's on that I can kill, right?
Yeah.
So we're in this unique period in time where we don't even understand how good we have it.
Yeah.
And the body is designed and the mind is designed to conserve energy because it takes a lot of energy to actually think. So we go through a lot of these models and we habituate patterns because it's easier for us. And one of the great ways to talk about that is, have you ever driven home and go, how did I just get here?
All the time.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I just pulled up, like I just went on autopilot, and you literally did.
Yeah, full
Right?
conversation in here.
Yeah.
And
Because the brain is hardwired, and you probably enjoyed that, where you're like, I didn't have to think about that. Was easy.
Yeah.
And the brain loves that because it's conserving energy. When you're doing things that are new, when you're doing things that are difficult, it's like, when's the last time you did a long division problem on paper? Never, right?
Yeah.
Just because that's what they make calculators for, right? Because it takes a lot of brain power, and we don't want to waste our brain power on doing that when it can be done so easily this way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or through other means. And so that's what we're hardwired for. So to do things like work out, it's not that working out's hard, it's just it's easier not to,
Yeah.
right?
For
So
sure.
it's like, whatever's a little bit easier not to do,
Yeah.
that's what the brain's gonna either consciously or unconsciously gear towards,
absolutely.
right? So making 100 calls, making, knocking doors or whatever. Is knocking the door really that difficult? No.
No.
Right? But it's easier not to.
Yeah.
It's easier to go, well, I got my CEs coming up next year, and, maybe it's a good day to knock that one out, right?
Every day's a CE day.
Yeah.
When's the last time I updated my website?
No, you're right though, because every single morning, I mean, I go to True Fusion, I do my classes and do the yoga and everything, and there are some mornings where there is a battle in my head of going or not, and all the excuses of the world not to go.
Yeah.
But it's definitely conditioning yourself to just keep doing it. And the more you do it, you get in that routine, the easier it gets. The easier to make your contacts, go on appointments, whatever it looks like. So.
Yeah.
Retraining your whole thought process. So
There you
catching
go.
that first thought that comes through your head, and
So we call
Big
those
time.
first words, right?
Okay.
So when I wake up in the morning, one of the first things you can say to yourself, like, what's the first thing that comes out of your mind in the morning, right? And are we conscious of it, right? So the alarm goes off or whatever, you wake up, and the first words, what are they? It's like, right? I just want to go
Another
back
day.
to 10 more minutes.
Snooze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, what if the first words were, I love myself. I'm so grateful for this day. Now you're training your brain and what to focus on.
Love
Right?
that.
So if you're like, oh God, Monday. No, right? You get to be right.
Yeah,
Or you wake up and you go, I'm so grateful for the privilege of this day.
yeah,
You're simply training your mind in which to focus on.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're all human, and we get up and we're still tired. And we're like, how did all right, I just
Yeah.
had 7 hours, but I felt like I just went to bed.
yeah.
That's not fair.
The mornings are so important too, and I remember you, and I've gotten away from it, so grateful that you brought up that lesson again, because I was practicing that for a while, so I'm going to reapply that. But also, especially in the mornings, I know chemically, I don't know what it's called, but there's some kind of hormone or something you probably know, but it goes through your system, and you're already automatically stressed. And I know I have to remind myself that the world's not falling apart in the first 2 minutes,
Yeah.
of all the things that have to occur. It's just how your body naturally reacts when you wake up. So
Yeah.
I love that, to naturally train yourself and
Yeah, hopefully you're not having like a cortisol dump right when you wake up, because it's
Yeah.
definitely a stressor chemical right in
Right.
the beginning of the morning.
Right.
Hopefully we wake up and we've got the dopamine going, and we've got a little bit of the feel-good hormones going through our body because we feel good about the morning.
yeah.
And so how do we start our day in a productive way, right? And so let me finish up this motivational triad real quick. So you
Yeah.
got conserve energy, the brain, you want to stay safe, right? Thank our ancestors. We are the byproduct of them living long enough for us to be here.
Yeah.
So we are hardwired to stay safe,
Yeah.
not to self-actualize. So it's more important to survive than to thrive. And so if you're like, well, I just don't feel like it. Of course you don't feel like it, right? Why? Whoever said you had to feel like it, right? So it's a story we make up in our head, like, I just don't feel motivated today. And it's like, that's great. Most of us don't.
Yeah.
And it's okay that most human beings don't, because that's a fleeting feeling. It's like feeling good or feeling happy. It's like we don't feel happy all the time. And whoever said you had to feel happy all the time?
Yeah.
And it's like, if we get away from that mentality and just go, I'm grateful to be bored right now, because that's all part of the process. How would I ever know what it feels like to feel happy unless I was upset sometimes or sad? Like, the greatest gift you can give yourself is having the strength to feel your emotions. Most of us don't have the strength to feel our own emotions.
That's scary.
Yeah, and it takes a warrior's mentality.
Yeah.
Why do we self-medicate so much?
Yeah.
Because we are afraid to feel our own emotions.
Yeah.
Most people can't be bored.
Yeah.
What happens? Get right on the phone, or I gotta, do something, or I gotta get on, right?
So
It's
true.
like, do we allow ourselves just to be bored or to be hungry? Like, oh, this is what hunger feels like. I'm not dying, right? I don't have to get on the airplane, right? And go, okay, how many meals do I get over the next 3 hours? Right?
Yeah.
Like, where's the peanuts? Sorry, we haven't taken off yet, right? It's like, okay, am I going to make it to the East Coast? Right? It's like, relax. Like, the human body's designed to go for prolonged periods of time without having to eat. But we get so conditioned that we get so uncomfortable with this feeling, and it may be boredom or hunger or thirst or whatever it is. It's like, can we allow that emotion and just be with it and process it? And just like, oh, that's boredom. And it's okay. Right? It's like, you don't have to jump out of it as soon as it feels uncomfortable, because if we do, we never have the ability to be in our emotions. And then we do all kinds of crazy things, right, to get out of that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a whole nother line of thinking, and that's why coaching is so, let's say, popular, important, is that it reveals our behavior to us, if we're willing to look at it, right? So a good coach simply holds up the mirror and goes, here's your behavior. We have a pattern here. Do you really want to change it? Not should you or you must. It's up to you, right? And then you get to make an informed decision like, yeah, not really. Okay, cool, right? It's like, if you don't, then you don't, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to force you to do anything. But then you're like, I'm so disgusted with myself. No more. Awesome. Now you're ready to do something different. Right? That's the beauty of coaching. You can't make anybody get coached, right?
Yeah.
You can't force it. I'm going to coach you, right? It's like, it doesn't work like that.
No.
Usually people get so disgusted with themselves over a period of time, they go, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So usually it's like, if I get beat up enough by myself, then I'm usually ready to raise my hand and go, okay, I'm finally willing to say whatever I'm doing is no longer working for me. I'm open to something different. And usually the people like us are usually the hard chargers, like, oh no, I can really run my head through that wall if I just try hard enough, right? It's hard again and again and again. And it's like, what was that other thing? Oh, the door. I could use the door?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, maybe that's the value of coaching. Okay, because I want to be tough, because we talk about mental toughness, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a time to be tough, and there's a time to be, step back and have perspective,
Yeah.
right? And if we have the tools to do both, now we have something pretty amazing happening, right? But the only tool you have is, I'm mentally tough. Good on you,
Yeah.
right? You're going to go through the world being mentally tough. But if you can be mentally tough and emotionally resilient and connected and loving and caring and absolutely ruthless when you need to be, now you have these abilities, these tools in which to navigate the world. But if you only have one skill, you're just going to try to make the world fit to that skill.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always go so well.
No.
Yeah, I love that look at yourself in the mirror. I tend to, I'll speak for myself, but yeah, I tend to just look at others, right, before you look at yourself. So,
Oh, it's so much easier just to judge and look at others than to have to look at yourself.
yeah,
That person's all jacked up. That person's all messed up. And you're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
me. That, and what I do is I get better as a coach is I constantly see myself and other people. Because they're simply a reflection of me.
Yeah.
And it's like, oof. And when I look at that way of thinking, it's tough,
yeah,
but I go, I get it,
Yeah.
right? And I can see pieces of me in every person.
Yeah. Well, it makes you a good coach, right? Because you can have empathy and you understand where they're coming from. So that's huge. So I've always felt very understood with our coaching. So absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And I love the point you bring up of taking full responsibility in your life, and it is a game changer. And yeah, I appreciate the coaching that we had for the couple of years. So it's been great. So I feel like this was the fastest podcast of all time.
Oh, is it done?
It's already been 30 minutes. So we're going to have to get you back on again.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So I want to thank the best co-host in the business, Mr. Rodrigo.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And I would highly recommend this man as a mindset coach. Richard Thompson, thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And guys, this is Run Vegas. Take care of yourselves today.